Sonic Truth, the Dynasty-focused fantasy football podcast. We're back, fellas. Another edition here. The free agency bomb is hit. I think this might even be more fun, like the players we know changing teams, than even the draft to some respect. I know the draft is like all the newness of it, but only like a handful of those guys end up being relevant. This is, I think, at least as cool.
I mean, oh my God. Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's got a new team. Now he's got Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and Jaxon Smith-Njigba has Sam Darnold. I mean, Sam Darnold signs. It's just the first domino. And then you've got Najee Harris. You've got these studs. They're just dropping a bomb on the league, Alan. You're absolutely right. Who needs the draft when you've got Darnold and Najee?
Yeah, I think people right off the bat will start hate commenting that. And actually, maybe you're right when you present it like that. But, I mean, you're naming all the bums. I mean, how about like Justin Fields now, who's going to be, a top 8 redraft quarterback by August, right? Does that sound right, Theo?
Probably a little closer to the QB 11, QB 12 because people are worried about the offense. But, yeah, Justin Fields is a huge winner. This is a guy where real-life NFL people will say Justin Fields doesn't win games, all that kind of stuff. But for us in fantasy football, Justin Fields, anytime he's starting, is a guy that helps us win fantasy games. And, per player profiler, go to the player pages, you can pull up Justin Fields' weekly finishes over the last 3 seasons. Over his last 24 starts, he has 11 top 5 finishes weekly. This is a guy with a ton of juice. And this was a bailout for dynasty managers, too, who have been holding on Justin Fields, maybe bottom low during the time he went to Pittsburgh. We talked about that last year, and you guys both talked about potentially buying Fields low, holding on to him, and now you get your bailout here. It might be a short bailout, but it'll be a fun bailout.
Podfather, I traded for Justin Fields when he was starting this past season, and I traded away J.J. McCarthy, who was injured, and I was like feeling pretty good about that. Then I was feeling horrible about that. Right now, which one of those two would you rather have in our Superflex Dynasty leagues? Would you rather have Justin Fields? He's locked in for at least 1 year with the Jets, or J.J. McCarthy, who now we know Daniel Jones is not going to be the backup threat. I mean, it's just his chance in Minnesota.
Justin
come
Fields.
on.
It's Justin
Fields.
Oh,
I'm shocked by that, Matt.
I'm not.
It's not Justin Fields?
No, it is Justin.
I don't know.
I got it wrong.
I'm surprised by you guys.
Wait, I got it wrong. I thought I was being punked. Like, well, isn't this obvious? You would want, and then you said no. It's actually JJ McCarthy.
I don't know. I think we're all butting heads here. I'll take JJ McCarthy all day. Over Justin Fields because again, like JJ, I think we could have room to run. The longevity of the position, the contract Justin Fields got was like the 2 years, $40 million. And
it's pretty good, by the way.
It's good, but the operative word is too.
All right, how about this? Theo, who's going to score more fantasy points this year? Justin Fields or J.J. McCarthy?
Probably Justin Fields.
Probably.
Okay,
probably.
Okay.
Probably.
So now
I don't give that a guarantee because I think if we look at it,
what percentage? What percentage is he going to outscore him by? By at least 5 quarterback positions. Like QB 8, QB 13.
5, or just simply outscoring. Give me 60% chance of outscoring with a 5 spot positional difference.
Yeah,
58%. JJ's going to score points. JJ's going to score points. JJ has mobility. We've been high on him at Player Profiler. Like JJ, it was also a win yesterday. I know there's some scenarios hanging over his head where there might be another quarterback in town, but like you said, Daniel Jones gone, Sam Darnold gone. The 2 quarterbacks who had the familiarity with Kevin O'Connell and the team are both gone. They go out and get Jonathan Allen on the defensive side of the ball. This is a team where they re-sign Aaron Jones, guys. Like, there's pieces all around him. And you just referenced Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold last year was QB 9 in points per game, had 35 passing touchdowns, had over 4,000 passing yards. JJ can do that. And JJ also has mobility. This is a guy that can really, really run now that the writing's on the wall there. So you're saying, like, Justin Fields will run for more yards. He's got the 23rd all-time in NFL history for quarterbacks and rushing yardage. Like, Justin Fields is going to run. Don't get me wrong. But JJ has some hidden has some hitting rushing upside that we love to see at the quarterback position. So I don't think it's a non-zero chance that JJ outscores him next year. I would bet on Justin Fields, but JJ I think will be the quarterback in Minnesota for several years. The first round pick, big time winner. Matt, I know you loved him when he was with Blake Corum last year at Michigan. 37-1 as a college starter. Like JJ's got a lot to him, guys.
He's bigger and faster than he looked in college. He's 6'3", runs like sub 4.6. So
Yeah.
he has Alex Smith level athleticism, but Alex Smith delivered some fantasy relevant seasons as a scrambler and a thrower. But it's still Alex Smith, and in a single quarterback league, I want a guy that's going to be a difference maker. If it's super flex, then fine, McCarthy. Okay, if it's super flex and have these guys for their career, and there's no way I could just make things happen at the quarterback position if I lose Fields, then okay, right? You're in some of these deep dynasty leagues that are super flex, and quarterbacks with longevity and stability are the absolute most precious commodity. So that I understand. But just in a single, I'm trying to win this season. Mm-hmm. So that's why I said Fields initially, but I am in more super flex than single quarterback leagues. So I feel like every time they now put me in the middle of this show where I've got Theo on one side and then co-host X on the other. This week we are blessed to have Alan Seslowsky, someone who can bring us in with his signature.
Signature.
Not sure what the hell the show is that we're doing. So I mean that is okay. So now I have set a precedent where every show I'm now waffling and I'm being pulled in both directions, and I'm changing my mind on the fly. I seem to have no conviction whatsoever. I've been exposed. Thanks a lot, guys.
Well, here's the only reason that you would pick J.J. McCarthy, right? Like you would say Kevin O'Connell's system, and you would say perceived longevity, right? Like, who's more likely to be the starting quarterback of the team they're on now in 5 years from now? Yeah, that's J.J. McCarthy. But who's more likely to have more fantasy points, the thing that actually matters in our leagues over the next 2 seasons, I would say that bet has to go on Justin Fields, guys.
It is $60 million. This is very much a Jimmy Garoppolo level contract, and Jimmy Garoppolo was given a 2-year run, and he face planted, and we moved on. The one case against McCarthy is we haven't seen him, and that all those teams that were trying to trade up and they were jockeying, maneuvering, none of them were trying to get McCarthy. They were all trying to get Drake May, remember? That's what it was all about. They all wanted Drake May, and if Drake May wasn't there, they were out. So there was something about McCarthy that led him to fall into the tier 2 status of quarterbacks in the draft last year. So that is a risk. Coming off the torn ACL is a risk. He's already starting behind. He's not going to be at full strength until well into preseason. Hopefully he's at full strength. He doesn't start the year on the pup because he tore the ACL so early last year, but we don't know exactly how that's all going to play out. So there's a lot of uncertainty there where Justin Fields is going to be a top 10 quarterback in fantasy. You can write that down. You know it's true, Theo.
Yeah, no, he should. He should be a QB1 in fantasy. I just think like the JJ McCarthy narrative, and Matt, he falls into a second tier, but falls right alongside Michael Penix and Bo Nix. And this, I think, was a really special class. And I think JJ is going to be part of why it was a really special class, the quarterback spot. I think it's going to end up being potentially a group where there's not a loser out of the group, where a lot of these guys just start for years to come.
Oh, so correction. SJFT 90. That's if someone has that kind of handle in the chat, they're just a complete douche. He said, "Hey nerd, it was a meniscus." That's true. That's actually on Player Profiler. I had the JJ McCarthy page pulled up. If I had just scrolled down, you would have seen that it was a meniscus. Absolutely. Here, let's just for the record, let's just make sure we all know. Okay, it's right there. Okay, a meniscus injury is not typically 17 weeks. In fairness to me, it's a rare thing, but they wanted to do the full and complete repair of the meniscus, and they decided, you know what, give this guy a red shirt. He's so young. That's the other thing with McCarthy. He's so young, but it's a rare thing to have a 17-week meniscus injury. Just so everybody that is aware, that's why when I'm thinking guy misses the full season with a knee injury, immediately I'm thinking, okay, ACL. But we're very blessed to have an incredibly engaged live studio audience. And this is why we record this podcast live. We don't upload it later. We record it live. This is not all like graphics added in post-production. I'm doing all of this live. I have the show sheet. I have all the graphics. I have the music. I have everything live. I'm right in the middle of both of you two.
Do you guys remember Broadway Bill Lee? What was that? Do you remember that guy from New York? He was a New York DJ. He used to do everything. Broadway Bill Lee. Do you remember? That's a New York sort of Connecticut thing. He would like hit the sound effects. He'd do the talk ups. That's Matt Kelly on this show right here. And by the way, you should Google that and look at the video. It's something to be awed, Broadway Bill Lee. But hey, forget JJ McCarthy. That's the easy one. See? Look at that. Would you rather, because this is about free agency and Justin Fields, and I think that the market's undervaluing him. Right now, he's like consensus QB, like in the 20s. That'll go up.
Yeah, but that'll
adjust. Yeah. But I'm saying it's like, would you rather have Fields in Dynasty, in Superflex, you're doing a startup, over like the Dak Prescott or Trevor Lawrence, like the guys that are established but have a lot of warts on them?
Would I rather have
Fields
JJ versus Fields?
No, JJ's out. We know JJ has his appeal because of where he is. But Fields, who's down, who nobody seems to like, versus some of these other guys who people do like, but have had a rough couple of years or a rough year.
Give us a player example.
He just did Dak and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. Okay, Dak and Trevor Lawrence.
Dak and Trevor Lawrence. I would take Dak. I would easily take Dak because Dak has had monster seasons. Trevor Lawrence has not. Trevor Lawrence may be the quarterback for what, 2 more years?
I think that's the question.
Give me both. Give me both over Fields. And I think that this could be a renaissance for Lawrence. Matt, the best wide receiver he's ever played with. He's going to have the full season with BTJ. Liam Cohen coming over. That's a Trevor Lawrence hire, if I've ever seen one. That's a get the offensive side of the ball right hire. Give me Trevor Lawrence. Again, guys, 2-year deal for Justin Fields. If the Jets go 6-10 this year, then this could be a 1-year Justin Fields,
Correct. That's the downside. 100% agreed. But the upside is contract, he wins weeks for you, right? Like we've seen Justin Fields have 40-point fantasy games and actually get you into the playoffs or actually, get you a bye week. So you're
a buy low on Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, definitely.
I'm a buy low Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. Theo is a buy low on. You're both the buy low on Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So if everyone's buy low on Trevor Lawrence, that means you probably can't trade for him for what you think.
Right. Especially because of the Liam Cohen bump. I think that people saw what happened with Baker in both stops and are like, okay, that's going to happen for Trevor Lawrence. I think that's the common thought.
Close your eyes and throw it up for Josh Gordon Part 2, who could be wide receiver 1 overall next year. Just close your eyes and
Josh Gordon Part 2? Is that BTJ?
Brian Thomas, BTJ.
Brian Thomas. Yeah, okay. Brian Thomas. A question from the chat, super chat, from Michael Kinsel. I think that's a type of bird. Is that a type of bird?
Quinzel.
Is
that
like an Australian bird, something? Anyway, Brock Purdy and DK Metcalf for JJ McCarthy and James Cook. Who says no?
Purdy and Metcalf. I think I'd rather Cook and McCarthy, right? Like that's just looking at it without knowing anything else.
Yeah, I would in a vacuum, I would rather have JJ McCarthy long term in Dynasty.
Is there anything that can make you
over Purdy?
Yeah, I guess I'm much higher on. I'm much higher on McCarthy.
No, you can't say that. We've seen nothing from this guy who was not a tier 1 quarterback in his class, and he's coming off a devastating knee injury. And yes, because it was a meniscus, he will be ready for camp and everything. That's all fine. Again, I was wrong about the injury, even though it was correct on Player Profiler, as it always is. Brock Purdy is best case scenario for J.J. McCarthy because Brock Purdy also can scramble. You're not going to get better than Brock Purdy. I mean, good luck.
J.J. McCarthy, if he was in this draft class, he would be the number one pick in the draft, in my opinion. I think J.J. McCarthy, if this would have been in somewhere in the multiverse, goes back to Michigan, J.J. McCarthy would have been selected ahead of Shedeur Sanders and ahead of Cam Ward. He was well ahead of him last year for people evaluating this draft class. And this is I'm looking at a context of this, and I've made some trades to get J.J. McCarthy too in Superflex leagues because I don't think the market's quite as high.
Yeah, here we go.
And I wish I could make more, Matt, but I think that more people are going to be on this. And guys, we don't want to get to just talking about a system, but I have a huge sample size of quarterbacks who have had successful fantasy weeks for either a short to long period of time. Does anyone remember Josh Dobbs in Minnesota? Does anyone remember Nick Mullins having 390 passing yards in consecutive weeks for Kevin O'Connell? Kirk Cousins leading the NFL in touchdown passes. And last year, Sam Darnold sort of left for dead by the community, finishes as QB9 in points per game last year under Kevin O'Connell. So for me, J.J. McCarthy, if I put him into context as redshirt year, sat one out, I'm really high on J.J. McCarthy. But
system, Theo, the system in Minnesota assures a nice floor for J.J. McCarthy.
And again, I think Purdy's a safer pick here. Like if you want the safer side here, go with the Brock Purdy side. You want the riskier side with maybe a little more upside. I think the J.J. and James Cook one is right there. I think if you want to be pragmatic,
I can give a non-answer for every question. I'll take
I'm McCarthy. Yeah,
I'll do a non-answer for all questions. I'll take Purdy and DK Metcalf in Superflex.
Yeah.
And I'll take McCarthy, the upside there, the mobility for single quarterback leagues. And that single quarterback leagues, it's a little easier to rebuild as well. So I'm a little more likely to go win now, a little less likely to go youth in single quarterback. And that's why I'll go with James Cook, because I think James Cook, he's got another year or two before we start to see either an injury or the inefficiency will eventually catch up to him. So,
all right.
And I want to congratulate Theo for going to the moon and back, hyping J.J. McCarthy, and never once mentioning the real reason, the only reason. He talked about every past quarterback and why the system and the coach is the answer, when we know what the real answer is. The real answer is the same reason why you like Trevor Lawrence. It's Justin Jefferson. That's the name to know. It's not Kevin O'Connell. It's Justin Jefferson is the tide that lifts all boats. The thing that I love most about J.J. McCarthy is Justin Jefferson.
And Addison.
Say his name.
Hawkinson. Justin Jefferson. But we also saw Jordan Addison take a huge step forward. We were higher on consensus than Jordan Addison last year. Right here on Player Profile.
All the time.
Jordan Addison was big time last year. So Jordan Addison is in a great spot again this year with McCarthy. So I am big on this whole passing game, big on this whole offense. They had injuries on the offensive line. They're going to be healthier on the offensive line this year. J.J. McCarthy's in a really good spot to have a really, really strong year one.
Guys, I also see a lot of people not really excited about Geno going to Las Vegas, but I think this is actually a boon for his fantasy value for the team overall. Obviously, Brock Bowers can't get any higher, but man, are you guys? I mean, RotoWire guys put out a bunch of videos crapping on Geno. I really, really like this, given the circumstances. He's reunited with Pete Carroll.
Well, I mean, when you look at Geno in a context, Matt, if he was on the free agent market with all these other guys, he would have gotten a lot of attention. Geno was QB 15 last year, 2 years removed from a QB 8 season, and he had the QB 8 season under Pete Carroll. Geno's not perfect, but it's the best that Las Vegas could have got in order to win right now. Vegas also opens themselves up to not selecting a quarterback at 6 overall and instead drafting the best available player, and it could end up being Ashton Genty. So for me, it's like, if you look at Geno Smith in the context of what the Raiders want to do, Raiders told you they want to win. You don't hire a 73-year-old Pete Carroll and then go get Chip Kelly from national championship Ohio State Buckeyes as the offensive coordinator, who's also an older guy. You don't get those two guys to go and have some 5-year plan to like, turn the culture. You get those guys so you can win. And they keep Max Crosby on the defensive side of the ball. They pay him, so they go get Geno. And this is Pete Carroll's guy. He had success with Geno. He won a lot of games with Geno and made the playoffs with Geno. They're trying to emulate the Jim Harbaugh model in LA. They go get a winner at coach and a guy that's going to get them on track. And now, guys, you bring up Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is incredible. I don't think that a quarterback's going to – we saw Brock Bowers succeed with very poor quarterback play last year. Geno's a level above. Does he hyper-target Bowers? Probably, because they're going to have to scheme Bowers. And then Jacoby Myers, underrated player. You add an Ashton Genty onto that team and maybe get a couple of very fast wide receivers in day two. Add a speed guy on day two. There's a number of those guys. Matt talked about when we did our show with the Fantasy Pros guys about how fast the wide receiver class ran. This Vegas has a pathway to be really fun next year. Now, how many games they win, I don't know, but they're going to be fun.
Vegas is in also a spot where they could trade out if one of the QBs fall, right, and just keep adding. Now they don't feel, like you said, pressured to take a quarterback in the first or the second round.
No, none at all, and that's completely off the table. And Vegas, I think, will make two. Just the way this offseason's gone for Vegas, I would be surprised if we hate what they do. It seems like in this draft they're going to make good decisions for their team. 6 overall is loaded in talent. There's a number of offensive linemen if they want to go in that direction. But I think this is the Genty one. Alan, they're favored in Vegas. The odds have, isn't that crazy? Ashton Genty's most favored spot is 6 overall right now. That's how good he is and how, what a player he is. So
thanks to Saquon Barkley.
Thanks to Saquon. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love it.
I am excited about the Raiders. When I was a kid, the Raiders were a fun team, and then they had a real fallow period there until John Gruden took over. And so I'm very happy that this team organizationally is back. And the irony is that they've just been going best player available. And this year, if they go best player available, it will be making their team worse. Because Genty will be the best player available, but in terms of positional value, not the pick to make. But I just think that they just are like, hey, we have a board. We have the most talented guys. We're just going to take the most talented guy. Brock Bowers, even though we have Michael Mayer, doesn't matter. He's available. We draft him. We're not overthinking this. So I love that about them. But the irony is that if Al Davis were there, then it would lead to them making the optimal selection at 6.
Which would take Golden. Oh, okay. We think of the same way.
We're trying to clip this for social media. This is why you don't go, kids. This is why you don't do live shows. For all the great comments and the super chats and the help from the audience, you have co-host dragging you down and interrupting you right at the crescendo of a 2-minute take. Thanks, Alan. Yes, Matthew Golden.
At least it was the same player, right?
Redo the take.
Redo it.
Take once.
Is that what you
redo it?
Do the whole thing.
Run it back.
Oh,
and Matt. I could be wrong, and the odds could be wrong, and Vegas could go in a different direction at 6. They could trade down from 6, and then
the
they
odds,
could draft
by the way,
a running back
have
at
shifted.
37.
The odds have shifted slightly. The Raiders are now in the second shortest odds. They're plus 200. Chicago Bears are plus 150 for Genty, according to DraftKings.
Well, there we go.
Theo, I know you love Devon Achane, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good running backs in this class. And Mostert's gone. They're not necessarily totally sold on Jalen Wright. We know that. Or he would have played more last year. The Dolphins are going to be in the market for a running back. And any running back that they draft is going to likely be an upgrade on Wright and will command some touches. given that, if you're in a dynasty startup and you're at, say, the 112-201 turn, are you going Achane or are you going Bowers?
I would probably lean with Brock Bowers because I think Brock Bowers is this generational tight end. I think they're both great picks. Obviously the scoring would impact this, but from a pure where would I rank them in Dynasty, I'm probably going to go Brock Bowers. I think I'm going to be higher on Brock Bowers than most in terms of Dynasty startups, even in single point PPR leagues, let alone tight end premium. That's a whole nother discussion. But in a regular PPR league, I think Brock Bowers could. There is a scenario, Matt, where Brock Bowers is a 20-point per game tight end in year 2. You go back to Rob Gronkowski 2011. You go back to 2020 Travis Kelce. You start looking at the win rates for those teams. Then you factor in the age, Matt. Then you factor in that Brock Bowers set the all-time record for the most receptions by a rookie ever in NFL history. If we just looked at him in a wide receiver context, then he's Puka Nacua from last year. If we look at him as he actually plays tight end, it's a positional edge. I would go Brock Bowers, I think, over Ashton Genty in a startup. Now, I think that's the way I'm at. But I think they're great picks. I think Genty's a stud, but Brock Bowers to the moon, to Jupiter, to Mars, to any planet you want to talk about.
Well, you can't talk about Pluto, though. It's a dwarf planet now.
Dwarf planet. Shout out to the dwarf planets.
Yeah, the dwarf planets. So the Geno signing just speaks to this new front office philosophy in Las Vegas that I love. Because when you have a weak quarterback class, going and getting a rental quarterback and just doing your best and putting something together, is still going to lose games. Like, this is not going to, you think this is going to be a winning franchise this year in the same division with the Chargers and the Chiefs? No, they just needed a bridge quarterback. The last thing you want to do is go overpay for a Sam Darnold or trade up for a quarterback that would not have been a top 5 quarterback in last year's class. That's why going in and signing the Geno Smith, going and trading for and signing a Justin Fields, those are smart moves in this offseason.
Yep. And by the way, they traded, a 3rd-round pick for Geno Smith? The player they were going to get in the 3rd round was most likely, probably wasn't going to be a starter, right? Nonetheless, hopefully make the roster, right? And
there's no guarantee that Geno Smith is going to have worse numbers than Sam Darnold.
Right. But Geno Smith, go ahead.
Shout out to the chat. I actually didn't fully answer Matt's question, but I'll keep it really short and sweet. It was Genty Bowers. I said I'll take Bowers over Genty. I will also take Brock Bowers over Devon Achane in a dynasty startup as well.
Yeah,
that's what.
I don't think that's even close, given that you can get a running back 3 rounds later that's 75% of Achane. Okay. You can't get anything close to.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, it is close. Okay, it is a conversation. You can't say Achane versus Bowers isn't a conversation. It's absolutely a conversation.
It's a tongue-in-cheek phrase, right? It's not even close. Means I'm definitive on my take.
I mean,
obviously
it
it's
is.
Close.
That is the definition of a conversation. This is great radio. This is one of the best Dynasty podcasts I've ever done in my entire life.
History of Dynasty podcasts.
The history of the Sonic Truth, the best Dynasty podcast in the world, and then one of the best episodes and one of the best. Okay. Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I mean, he's a big winner. And it's not because of Sam fucking Darnold or the offensive coordinator in Seattle. It's because bye-bye DK Metcalf. He's vaporized. Tyler Lockett, gone. All that's left is this guy. This guy. That's it. Who else are they going to throw the ball to?
This is the age-old question, though. Is it better to have something viable next to you so you don't get doubled and tripled, right? Like, I don't know if I subscribe to it, but I mean, what if, we said earlier, I don't know if it was on or off, but if they sign a Brandon Cooks, that's, or a Keenan Allen, some of these washed out 30-plus-year-old veterans, just something. Fine. Because they can't have Jake Bobo as the starting, is he still even on the team, that guy? And
who?
Yeah, exactly. Who else is on that depth chart right now?
I don't know.
I mean, Matt, when you also talk about
I honestly, at one point they had Bo Melton. They're really missing Bo Melton now.
Yeah, but seriously, is it better to have someone? Is it better to have someone viable next to you? Here's right now. This is what our lads has is the depth chart. It has Derek Young, John Plumlee, and Jalen Darden. Those are the wide receivers outside of JSN.
So 180 targets for JSN. Unless it's just going to be, hey, they're gonna run the ball. So you went and signed Sam Darnold to hand it off?
So they're going to add a couple vets and draft somebody. I mean, that's just like, I would say the under-over for vets signed is 1.5, right?
What about the draft, though? They're at pick 18. So I have this pulled up right now. You get the Colts, Falcons, Cardinals, Bengals, and then at pick 18, you have the Seahawks. Is this a wide receiver destination, Theo?
I think it is. I think that it's largely, you've seen a lot of offensive line or wide receiver mocked to this spot. But I think with DK gone, they get the second rounder for DK. And so I believe that's pick number 52 they accumulated. And now they have this pick here where if you look at stylistically, what wide receiver would match up very, very well with JSN, I think it's Golden, Matt, because of the pure speed that he would bring and sort of being able to sort of open everything up for JSN. Another interesting thing about JSN, where Matt is absolutely correct, when we saw DK miss that time, you saw JSN have a much higher ADOT. They were taking shots downfield. That's when JSN had his massive spike week. Matt, I don't remember which week it was exactly, but we had that 1 week where JSN just went nuclear. It was like a 37-point week, 35-point week. Okay, week 9 against the Rams, 37 points that week. And that's sort of like what we see with a peak JSN week looks like. So he's going to be hyper-targeted. Now he probably also mixes in some downfield targets. So for me, I think I agree with you. I think JSN is a win, and I think it's actually a decent time to send an offer out because I think there's a lot of doom and gloom, Sam Darnold's terrible type people out there. There's also a lot of people who are like Alan projecting Seattle to be a top 5 pick next year. That doesn't do anything to JSN, though. That's a 1 year. JSN's 23 years old. They're not going to be picking in the top 5 every single year. This is a team that can get it right. And I think, like you said, Matt, this is JSN's offense. Walker and Charbonnet, those guys, as long as they're both on the roster, both are going to touch the ball. And then there's going to be another wide receiver brought in, probably a new tight end as well, guys. But it's going to be
Daniel Jeremiah's new mock. And again, just referencing him, he's one of the credible mockers out there, that's in the mainstream media. He has a guy named Gray Zabel. And is that a linebacker?
No, it's an offensive lineman.
Offensive line inside. All right. It's a guard, right? Inside offensive lineman going there. So they're not even like saying it's a definite. And these are guys that are somewhat plugged in. Doesn't mean this is the holy grail, right? But,
well, we're dropping an updated mock draft on Player Profiler, and it's going to be an offensive lineman or a wide receiver would probably be the way I'd lean for which way Seattle will go. But I mean, again, you pick up pick number 52, and maybe you find your wide receiver in round 2 now because you have two selections in that round. There's a bunch of appealing wide receivers. We talk about guys like Jaden Higgins in that role. I think that would be a nice landing spot for Higgins. I think he's right in that wheelhouse. So if maybe you don't get one at 18 and you wait till the second round with that additional pick you picked up for DK. And Matt, you've seen it oftentimes when teams flip a pick for a wide receiver for a pick, they end up drafting another wide receiver. It doesn't always work out. A.J. Brown, Treylon Burks, they'd like a do-over there in Tennessee, but a lot of times it's like, I'll get my replacement in the draft.
Pick 50, pick 52, Seattle. That's where they're going to draft their wide receiver because they're in the dead zone in the first round. Right? Because Golden's going to be gone. Golden's not going to be there.
He should be gone.
And Tet McMillan probably going to be gone, right?
And also, Egbuka is overlapping with JSN. That's not necessarily the guy you want to pair with JSN.
No, they don't want Egbuka. It's like I say, it's a redundant skill set. And then where you are, then it's Luther Burden, your second rounders. No, you have to wait. You have to wait, and you can get, like you said, one of these Iowa State wide receivers in round 2.
Yeah, I think that would be right there. And they've also been linked to Trey Harris. There's been some people saying that this could be a Trey Harris landing spot, which, Matt, the constant back and forth we've had with our friend Jax Falcone about his enthusiasm for Trey Harris. I was on Golden. Go back and forth on that. narrative changes a little bit if Trey Harris gets 110 targets next year as a wide receiver 2 in an open passing offense. So, but it is Matthew Golden. I already won that one, Matt. The combine push.
Why are people laughing at Trey Harris in the chat? That doesn't make sense.
Trey Harris is not my guy. Anybody who's watched Sonic Truth will see that I have receipts. I have him like wide receiver 9 in the class, but he is being linked to Seattle. There are some people projecting him as a 2nd or 3rd round pick to Seattle. They like him.
But you acknowledge he's a good receiver. He just doesn't have the fast twitch like some of these other guys. But athleticism is not nearly as predictive for wide receivers as it is for running backs. So why you would totally discount a guy because he runs a 4.55? That's just focusing on the wrong details.
And also, he's 23. I think people don't like that Trey Harris is a little bit older than this class. It's sort of a, that's not as important as it used to be. But Trey Harris, the breakout age was a little bit later. But yeah, it doesn't matter. This is not a Trey Harris show, guys. This is a Seattle is going to take a wide receiver show. So
I think
Seattle wants a wide receiver that is going to come early to practice, stay after practice, work on his strength and conditioning, and not order Uber Eats candy every day. That's what they want.
I think they're more likely to sign a wide receiver. Here's a couple of names that are still out there for Seattle to sign. Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams. Nothing great, but just Brandon Cooks, Nick Westbrook-Akine. I mean, MVS. I mean, you can see them signing 2 or 3 of these guys, right? And then that's their wide receiver room.
That's disgusting.
Gross.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying, those are guys that are going to be names on the back of jerseys that have brand recognition. I mean, I'm not saying they're great, but you could easily see them signing like Brandon Cooks and Keenan Allen. And now which by the way, is better for JSN probably, because at least there's not, that room plus your favorite rookie that they take in the 2nd round is not going to even garner any coverage in the first month of the season, other than they're the weakest cornerback on the other team.
Yeah, I mean, that would be fine. But I do think like the 50 and 52 could both be offensive picks. Could maybe get a tight end also in that mix, Matt. They need a long-term tight end, and this is an appealing tight end class. Maybe a Mason Taylor ends up in that pick. So yeah, there's a lot of ways we could go fantasy-wise. But JSN definitely a winner here. This is his offense. Really unbelievable where it's a disappointing rookie year. DK, Tyler Lockett ahead of him. Now both are off the team, and it's JSN season. He had 100 catches in year 2. The narrative's completely changed, guys. It's going to be fun.
Okay, so they should go offensive lineman, then best available tight end, and then Iowa State wide receiver. That's what they should do with their first 3 picks. That we've decided it. It's done. Would you rather have JSN or Drake London?
Oh,
Drake London.
But it's close.
I would rather have JSN at this point. You guys just forgot everything you just said?
No, Drake London, I think when we look at Drake London, the sample size is small, but the Michael Penix Drake London connection end of the year has me excited. I think Atlanta's an offensive taking a step forward. Seattle, this is a transition year. I think Atlanta, I don't know. I'm very, very high on Drake London heading into this season. I think Drake London had his huge breakout year this year, finishes as a wide receiver 1, and then it got even better when Penix came in. Hyper targeting London thriving alongside him. I think that Atlanta scores more points than Seattle. I think Drake London has a chance to score a lot more touchdowns than JSN, and I don't think that the catch disparity is going to be as wide as we think. I think Drake London's also going to catch a ton of passes. So I'll go Drake London, but I'm happy to have JSN too.
You think you just convinced me. I'm going to flip-flop again. We should call this show the Flipcast, just to flip me. You guys just flip me. I come out there with some weak position, and then you guys flip me. That should be that's the whole show.
So, sounds OnlyFans-ish, with flip over Podfather.
Oh, what? Sounds awful. That's
we'll insert our
awful place.
And we'll insert our take into you.
It's awful. It's just awful. Alan.
Is flip a sexual term?
He just made it one. He just made it one.
Flip, you know about what do you flip? If it's a sexual term, explain this to me. What are you flipping?
Sure. So
He's flipping you over.
I can make you. Yeah, there you go. Flip you. Like you're the new Bonnie Blue. You're the new Bonnie. Are you aware of Bonnie Blue, by the way?
No. Who's Bonnie Blue, Alan?
It's
Okay,
awful.
so
She's
so-
the lady who slept
hold
with
on,
like 1,000 people.
yeah.
It's
So
awful.
well, hold on, it goes deeper than this. So Bonnie Blue, new internet. She's an OnlyFans girl, but famous for sleeping with 1,000 men in 24 hours. Became super rich off of it, right? And now just bought a $500,000 blue Ferrari. Now shows up on spring break, right? I mean, if you're deep into the internet, this is going to be on your algorithm feed.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so 1,000, but basically 1,000 men. And by the way, Theo, you're usually wholesome. How do you know about Bonnie Blue?
Because it's a known internet thing, but I'm not going into
Okay.
as much detail as you. Certainly not on a fantasy football podcast, Alan.
I saw a
And
great
certainly
meme. I saw a great meme though.
Flipping anybody.
So real quick, Podfather, the great meme was that, she bought this Ferrari for $500,000
Okay.
and the meme said something like this. I'm paraphrasing that. Do you think she would let there's no way she would let 1,000 strangers take a Ferrari out because she values, her Ferrari. You would just never let 1,000 strangers take your brand new Ferrari out for a spin.
Right.
Shout out to our
but
editors. Get rid of this one, guys.
But she did allow 1,000 strangers to take her vagina out for a spin.
Yep. But you got to see her on spring break here. She's like spitting tequila into people's mouths and stuff like that. Like, imagine you get caught on film like Bonnie Blue after she blew 1,000 people, like spitting tequila into your mouth.
Is her last name BLEW?
It's UE, but it's obviously a great porn name, because it's in the.
Put her on the
We're
thumbnail.
doing great.
Alan.
We're doing great today, guys.
JSN and Bonnie Blue together on the thumbnail.
By the way, Drake London, just to show you the upside. I mean, everybody knows it, but that last week against Carolina, 18 targets, 10 catches, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, 40 fantasy points, man. Not a lot of receivers have that upside.
Okay, all you need to do is go to the game log and pick your best game, and then you got me. I'm just the.
That's the upside.
I'm the
I gave you
plastic bag.
a 37 pointer
In
for
the air.
JSN.
Yeah.
We got a 37 pointer.
I'm a plastic bag in the wind. American Beauty. You must have loved that, Alan. That's about a dirt bag.
I like American
You
Beauty.
must have loved American Beauty.
That's a good movie. Kevin Spacey, right?
Of course. He's like, it's a good movie. It's Kevin Spacey.
Listen,
Kevin Spacey. Of course, Kevin Spacey's your favorite actor.
I mean, he's one of the all-time greats. He's not one of the top 50 actors of the last 25 years.
Oh, I think he's
House of Cards. House of Cards.
Whoa,
Yeah.
Theo, you
House
got to
of Cards.
separate the man from the art. I mean,
Exactly.
he's definitely a top 50 actor.
I mean,
Okay,
probably top
Have
25.
you heard him type in Kevin Spacey impressions. He's one of the great impressionists. He could have been on Saturday Night Live.
Okay, Usual Suspects, he was great in. Seven, very good in. And House of Cards was a very good show for the first 2 years, and it got a little off. So
After he left
I know
the
my
show,
Kevin
and-
Spacey here, guys.
Yeah,
I know my Kevin Spacey, but he's not. I don't know. I could come up with maybe top 50. I'll give you top 50. Top 50 is fine.
I mean, that's amazing. You know how many actors there are?
A lot of actors out there.
Yeah.
A lot of actors.
Well, the thing is,
No Bonnie
before
Blue.
all the scandals, when you heard other actors talking about him, that's how you knew he was top 50. That's all I need to know is what they were saying before the scandals. And they were all like, he's one of the greatest. He's one of the greats. It was such a pleasure to
Big
work
time.
with him. And then...
He started diddling boys on the sets, which, by the way, he did not.
They're walking away. They're not keeping up for him. I think we need to go to
Alan.
commercial.
Alan, it's implied. You don't need to say it.
Well, he disputes and denies it all on. I forget, he was either on. No, he wasn't on Rogan. He was on either Tucker or one of those shows, and he was saying that was all false accusations. So
I believe that was the Lex Friedman podcast.
there it is. There it is. You saw it too. That's a good call
I
out.
saw it because I was waiting for him to ask him a difficult question or challenge him at all, and he never did.
Right. It's fair.
Now, while I'm driving the show, and I'm asking all these questions, and I'm talking about who would you rather have, it's because I'm constantly referencing the Dynasty Deluxe package on Player Profiler, and I just want to show everybody what it's all about. If you play in Dynasty, you need Dynasty Deluxe, our premium package for Dynasty Leaguers. We rank over 300 players, updated every week, all year long. And there's a win now mode and a rebuild mode with Superflex and tight end premium controls. and a Dynasty League sync, where you can say, sync down all of my sleeper teams, all my FFPC teams, and then you can browse around your leagues for who has needs, and then you can use our trade finder to see what kinds of trades are happening in leagues that are similar to the one I want to do. Then you can analyze trades using our trade analyzer, which balances the lifetime value, which includes pick values out to like 2028. All of that plus the rookie guide, $25 value, is included. So if you're just in one Dynasty League, Dynasty Deluxe is well worth it. And use your host's promo code, and you can bump up to all in and get $25 off. The promo code is Podfather. The promo code is Podfather there. And the rookie guide is about to launch. It's on the precipice. Theo has his finger on the button, the launch button, the sequence. We're counting it down any day now, right, Theo?
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I think last year's turned out very well. This year is going to be even better. You get my rookie rankings. You get Cody Carpenter's rookie rankings, John Lobb's rookie rankings, Jagger May's rookie rankings, and Jax Falcone's rookie rankings. It's the best looking rookie guide out there by a mile, guys. It's just visually stunning.
What's the biggest, Theo, in the rookie guide, what's the biggest disparity of a player? Like, where does the highest and the lowest ranker have the biggest disparity on one of the main players?
You know what? Let me pull up the updated rankings, because these are continually changing too, Alan. This is not.
Yeah, I mean, as of time of broadcast.
All-time backhanded compliment in the chat. Shoko says the Podfather is a silver fox. And the fox part's good, but would you guys classify me as a gray-haired man?
Doesn't silver fox mean gray pubes? I thought that's what it meant. I swear to God, that's what I thought it meant.
No, silver fox means gray hair, but usually the gray hair is everywhere.
Let me see. I'm going to look up the definition.
You thought silver fox meant specifically pubes?
I swear. Well, listen, silver fox is a type of, it's actually giving me the animal. It's not the slang. What is silver fox?
Okay.
An older man, generally with gray hair.
How does the penis become a fox?
So here it is. It's a silver fox is a slang term for older man, which you're not. You're the youngest on the show, generally with gray or graying hair, who is considered attractive, charming, and classy.
That's a compliment.
It's a compliment, except the gray hair piece.
And aren't you the youngest?
I mean,
on the show?
I have some gray. Like, I don't dye my hair or anything. I mean, I have some gray, but I take a lot of pride in my lack of gray hair. It's great genetics over here. And I'm not the youngest on this panel, by the way. It is Theo.
Yeah.
Theo is the youngest.
How old are you?
It's nothing with Theo. This has nothing
How old
to
are
do with
you,
Theo.
Alan? You got to reveal it. I'll tell you whether I'm older or younger.
Yeah, I'm 49. I'm not.
I'm younger. I'm younger.
I don't. That we knew of me.
Yeah.
Well, this is nothing to do with you, Theo. This is my great genetics, is what fooled him. Just so you know. And I take great care of myself. I have a whole moisturizing regimen that I use.
You hide your age? You guys don't hide. You're not that vain, right? Where you hide your age?
No, I'm not. I'm not hiding my age, but I'm clearly the youngest one on the show.
I'm 47
how old
years
are you?
old.
You're 47. Okay. So you do look good. I would say you would look about 42, maybe 41, 42. And I thought Theo was, 40, 43.
You're right on.
39?
You're right on. No, you're right there. You're right there. Okay. 42 years old. 42 years old, guys.
I am both a silver fox and a genius, because I think the strongest position I've taken in the last month has been that you have to trade for Najee Harris in Dynasty.
It's a good one.
It's been everywhere. I've said it everywhere. It was the most obvious thing ever, and it had nothing to do with him going to the Chargers. It was that whoever signed him was going to sign him to a contract that would guarantee that he wouldn't face immediate competition from the NFL draft. You're signing Najee Harris so you don't have to go burn a day one or even potentially a day two pick on a running back. Clearly the Chargers need yet more help in the backfield. They released Gus Edwards. All they have is Kamani Vidal, so they're going to draft another running back, but that running back is not going to be a threat to Najee Harris in year one. There are very few backfields now that are safe from the NFL draft. I would consider the Chargers now safe. The Rams are relatively safe. The Buccaneers are relatively safe. And I thought on a previous show that the Jets we're relatively safe, considering they just drafted Braylon Allen, who has a bell cow profile, on top of Breece Hall. But Theo has seen a number of trades going in both directions. Like, the Breece Hall trade market is hot right now, isn't it, Theo?
Yeah, and I think it went down with the Fields signing. If you want to trade for Breece Hall, I think this is the window to trade for Breece Hall. And if you want to get out from under Breece Hall, you're not going to get as much as you thought. It's super interesting, Matt. I saw a really high level kind of known FFPC manager who's very successful in dynasties, won a ton. He moved Breece Hall for the 103 and the 203 in a single QB a few weeks back, sort of trying to get out from under. Then I saw another manager sort of making
that's not
trades,
that big of a deal, by the way.
No,
that's
it's
just
not.
market value. That's just, hey, I'm going to replace him with Omarion Hampton.
Yeah, exactly. But now you're starting to see some pivots that don't involve draft picks where people are getting a little bit worried, because I think that with Fields, it's the potential to have a limited number of targets to Breece Hall. Like, the running back 2 overall season, he had a high 70s for the catches. Last year goes down to the 50s. I think that might be where he's at again this year. And when you look at the overall running back market, guys, there's multiple running backs that we would bet would outscore him this year. Alan, you referenced how he's a 2-3 turn pick in on Underdog, and certainly in like some FFPC, other formats. Breece Hall, I think, is going to remain right around there. I think he's insulated that way. But in Dynasty, it's Matt. Would you rather have Omarion Hampton without knowing the landing spot, or Breece Hall?
Omarion Hampton all day. Even though Breece Hall has an incredible profile, he has the size, he has the athleticism, he has it all. I mean, the receiving skills, 76 targets in a season. I mean,
yep.
How do you not love this guy? But the yards per carry has been in decline, and it's clear that the Jets do not view him as a bell cow back. And we knew this the moment the Braylon Allen draft card got turned in. We knew, okay, the Jets don't view Breece Hall as fantasy gamers do. And this is what we said in Detroit. We said this. Like, it's official. Fantasy gamers have a completely different view of Breece Hall than NFL general managers. And this is why I wasn't drafting him last year at all. In Dynasty, in Best Ball, he was going before Bijan Robinson in a lot of seasonal league drafts. And I just thought that didn't make any sense, because we know that the team doesn't believe in him the way fantasy gamers do. Hey, if we were running NFL teams, we would be playing Breece Hall 80% of snaps. But for whatever reason, what the coaches are seeing on tape and in practice from Breece Hall gives them pause when they want to give him carries between the tackles, outside the tackles. It just, still knowing all that, the idea that the Jets would draft Genty in the top 10, it's so far-fetched.
Yeah. Well, it's not the favorite, that's for sure.
I don't think it happens. I think that there'll be some people in the building who want to consider it, because if he's OTC there, he'd be viewed as the best offensive player. And Matt, the two of us were in Detroit with our terrific coverage of the NFL draft, where Matt and we screamed for like 3 days. It was an absolute blast. But if we go back 1 year before, there was a large contingent of Jets beat reporters reporting that the Jets tried to position themselves to get Jahmyr Gibbs and draft Jahmyr Gibbs. And there was a lot of smoke with that one. So this has been a organization that, despite having Breece Hall in the building, what happened with Breece Hall year one? Breece Hall goes down with an injury, misses half the year. You don't know if that's another thing kind of factoring the Jets' decision, where that injury is still sort of fresh on their mind.
Theo,
but at the end of go for it.
He's never Breece Hall's never even had 1,000 rushing yards in a season yet.
No,
we're going into year 4 here. I mean, and
No.
Podfather referenced it at the beginning of the podcast, but he's a second-round draft pick. There's no fifth-year option for him. They're going to really give him $12 million a year next year, or they're just going to say, let's draft Ashton Genty. I'm saying it's like there's a chance that they take, or even the second round, right? They move. What if they take Hampton in the second round if he's there? I mean,
I think it's also, not to interrupt you, Alan, but I think it's also this draft class is so deep. Matt, we referenced how they draft Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis on day 2. If you draft another day 2 back that just sort of gets in the mix, maybe competes with Davis, then you could end up having another sort of guy that could work out long term with the depth and quality of this draft class. There's multiple players that are DJ Giddens in round 4, that sort of player potentially there. Like, there's a lot of guys who can fall to round 4. We think there'll be 9 running backs drafted by the end of day 2. There's some people who say that's a light estimate. You could see 12, but let's say there's 9. If 9 running backs go on by the end of day 2, then round 4 is going to be running back cleanup. And I don't think that the Jets will be like boxed out from drafting one of these guys. You're talking about a day 3 bet. So there's multiple players where they might feel good enough organizationally that they do never give Breece Hall the contract, and we see Breece Hall on another team. Now, Breece Hall is a stud. Like, don't get it wrong. We're not anti-Breece Hall. We've been very pro-Breece Hall on Player Profiler since he came in the league. Matt and I have been pounding the table for people to get him on their dynasty teams, but he's been a huge victim of his circumstances. Last year, it was Aaron Rodgers doesn't pass him at the highest level. They go and get Davante Adams. That also hurt Breece Hall. There was some usage and consistency. He had to deal with very poor offensive coordinators, and also the whole team in general with Saleh. They end up firing his coach midseason. Now they go out and get Justin Fields, and Justin Fields doesn't check down. So he goes Aaron Rodgers, he goes Justin Fields. It's a tough putt for Breece Hall managers because he's really good, but he's not going to be the league winner. It's just that ship sails.
It's a tough putt, man.
Yeah,
it's a tough putt. Explain to me how Breece Hall is a top 10 dynasty running back. Explain this to me, because after Barkley, you've got Hampton, you got Jonathan Taylor, you got Quinshon Judkins, you got TreVeyon Henderson. When you add those Ohio State running backs to the mix, both of them could be first-round picks. Certainly unlikely they'll be available to the Jets in the mid-second round. Suddenly it's like, wait a second. Even a guy like DJ Giddens, like, you look at his profile, it's comparable to Breece Hall's. That's how good this class is. And if we're now hearing, okay, Lance Zierlein projecting the Jets to draft Ashton Genty, years prior, connections to Jahmyr Gibbs, you're not allowed to be surprised when they bring in someone who's going to cannibalize touches even further. And then that's going to drop Breece Hall. And then you got to keep asking the question, okay, who would you rather have, Breece Hall or Kyren Williams? Right. Kyren Williams, his touches are much more secure than Breece Hall's in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, when you go down to there, like, Matt, when you get to I'd say the running back 11 through 16 range, I think Breece Hall separated himself sort of above those guys. But again, you're talking about there's a lot of threats coming in this draft class where if they land well, these guys all have the profile to leap him and to score well this season. And then you talk
it's almost a rebuilding move.
Yeah.
You would want Breece Hall if you're rebuilding. If it's a win now team, you'd rather have Kyren Williams. After the draft, you're going to rather have Kyren Williams. I guarantee you, best ball ADP. Look at the underdog best ball ADP. Look at the Flex 4 FastDraft ADP. Kyren Williams will be going before Breece Hall after the draft. He's very fortunate that he was a second-round pick. They're not going to franchise him based on how they feel about him, and he's going to be able to escape. He's going to escape like Najee Harris did this year. So next year, that'll be the big conversation around free agency is where's Breece Hall end up? He's going to get rescued. Like, he's going to get saved. He is going to end up with the Texans, and it'll be amazing. Right. We'll all love it. But you got to wait a year. You have to one more year of pain with Breece Hall. I am a Breece Hall truther in Dynasty. I'd rather have Breece Hall than Kyren Williams. I'm just saying that's 100%. The threshold. That's the threshold. I'll take the talent over the situation every time in Dynasty, but it's just unfortunate that we're in this place. And the beauty is in free agency, the team that goes and pays him is the team that sees him as an every down player. He's going to go to the team that believes in him the most. That's why we're so looking forward to free agency with Breece Hall.
Have you guys talked about, I mean, the Breece Hall thing, I get it, right? But have you guys talked about older players on any of the other podcasts, like a Davante Adams going to the Rams? Like, is this exciting to you? Like, to me, this has like top 5 overall upside, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Davante Adams has juice, right?
Okay,
if
good.
you go
I'm
to their
glad
profiles, Davante Adams had an upper percentile burst score coming out of Fresno State. So he has plenty of athleticism to burn. Like, he can turn 32 and be just fine as long as he's taking care of his body. The issue with a Cooper Kupp is he was a sub-athlete coming out of Eastern Washington. And he's been getting by with guile and knowing the game plan and reading the minds of cornerbacks, knowing exactly where they're going to be at any given time. Remember the video that was taken somehow in the office? They had a video running of Belichick and Brady talking about scheming against Ed Reed and how they were going to set up Ed Reed, how they had this whole plan to like flood the zone against Ed Reed and put him on skates and put him in no man's land. And it worked. And it was incredible. And like the coach was like just writing down notes where Brady was like, here's what we're going to do to beat Ed Reed. And then Belichick was like, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. We'll do that. We'll do that. We'll get that in the game plan. We'll get that in the game plan. And Brady's like, okay, thanks. Bye-bye. Good meeting. Good talk, coach. Because again, like with Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, what matters is the players on the field more than the coaches. Davante Adams at 32 has a hell of a lot more than Cooper Kupp. But if you look at what Cooper Kupp did at the beginning of last year, impressive. Davante Adams can do that for an entire season. I think he's going to age very well. We know that he's obsessive about his strength and conditioning, and part of it goes back to how much he flailed and failed in those first 2 years. Like, he's talked about that he felt like his career in the NFL was hanging on by the thinnest of thread, and like Aaron Rodgers tried to infuse him with confidence, but he's like, I have to do something. And that just led him to work harder and harder and harder. If he had seen success in year one, we may not be even talking about Davante Adams right now. But it was that turning point where he became a guy that had an 84th percentile explosiveness, was a mega producer in college, and decided to dedicate himself to his craft in a way that DK Metcalf never did and never will. And that's why he's going to put up huge numbers in a pass-first offense in Los Angeles this year, and he and Puka are both going to eat, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember last year in redraft season, Theo? Like, Cooper Kupp was going at the end of the second round, right? Like, what Davante Adams right now in like redraft best ball stuff is going like in the 5th round. If he's a better version of Kupp was at least last year, all right, Puka's still going to be a first-round pick. Shouldn't Davante be going on that 2-3 turn?
I think you'll see Davante enthusiasm when we get closer to actual like peak redraft season, because
training camp
this is going to be a very highly consolidated target share. If we just look at the Cooper Kupp roll from last year, it's a 26.5% target share, and there was multiple weeks, especially when those two came back, where it was the period of time where Kyron Williams had his streak where he was really lacking scoring. It was a pretty like wide stretch, like a month, where it was wide receiver centric scoring in LA, where it was Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp combining for like 65% target share, 55, 70. It was like crazy. And when it comes to Davante Adams, you're going to see that in LA next year. It's a perfect spot. Matt, you're spot on with this one. Davante Adams will play the Cooper Kupp role better than Cooper Kupp could. And Davante Adams last year was 17 points per game in a season in which he was traded in midseason. Before that, he had 3 years in a row where he had 169 or more targets. This is a Mount Rushmore wide receiver over the last 25 years in fantasy. Davante Adams just scores and scores and scores. And when you get to the LA offense, this is a team where we've seen it with McVay. When he has a matchup that he likes and can exploit, you get these 35-point weeks, because he'll go to Davante Adams over and over and over again. You want to take away Puka Nacua this week? That's fine. We're going to target Davante Adams 20 times this game. And so this is a great landing spot. I think when it all settles out and we get to the big money weeks and, the quote unquote smart money shows up, you're going to see some Davante Adams round 4 shares. And in NFFC, Alan, where you guys at RotoWire are drafting with the wide receiver heavy format, you'll see some round 3 Davante Adams shares. So he's old, but 17 points per game, Matt. He was a wide receiver 1 last season.
I'm telling you.
And now lands on a really good. Yeah, this is like,
yeah. This is one of the best free agent signings. This is probably the most impactful free agent signings if we're talking about fantasy points for this year. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to carry it over. Like, one guy absolutely faded into oblivion at the end of last season. The other guy came on strong. That's the other thing you got to love. A guy that's 31 having a better second half than he did a first half, which was the opposite of Cooper Kupp.
Yeah. Podfather, would you give up if you're on the clock, you won the league last year, your Dynasty League, you have the 112, and you're on the clock, and you just want to fortify your receiver room, like your third receiver is like Olave or someone, or Devontae Smith. Would you give up that 112 for a 32-year-old Davante Adams in the Dynasty League?
Would you have to?
I don't think you need to, Alan.
Well, that's what it is. That's what I'm asking. Like, I mean, you're not going to get him for the 212, right? So it's going to have to be the 112.
This is where the dichotomy of Dynasty comes in. The guy that was holding Davante Adams was chasing it last season. So more likely than not, he's just holding Davante Adams. It's
right. He's the one. So let's say he's the 108 guy, right? Like the 108. But he just says, "Hey, you want Davante? We have a new situation here, right? He wants another first-round pick. He's in love with whoever's on the clock at 112. Here, just answer this question. It's even though it's an overpay, is it a fair pay if you're already a good team and you have that 112? Because I think there's going to be teams that are on the 112 and are like, I guess these guys are good, but Davante Adams, is that enough points for at least 1 year to give up a rookie? It's an overpay.
I think it's fine because you're not going to get access to the top 4, the big 4 running backs. So if I can't get access to the big 4 running backs at that pick, and probably can't even get Matthew Golden at that point. So now we're talking about much lower probability hits at wide receiver, and then that next tier of running backs. Now I love that next tier of running backs, but I mean, give me Davante Adams.
It's tight end 2. You're choosing between like Colston, Loveland, the tight end 2. You're choosing, a second round receiver, maybe, that went in the first couple picks of the second round of the real NFL draft. Maybe it's Caleb Johnson, who's like in a good spot that no one I don't know. It's the 112 in certain years. It's great, right? Like BTJ went at 112 in some drafts last year. Michael Penix, Bo Nix, but.
Well, those are super flex drafts, and there's only a couple quarterbacks, right? So now that pick could conceivably be Jackson Dart, but Jackson Dart probably goes at like the 110, 111 in super flex. So who would it be? Like you said, Caleb Johnson, maybe Caleb Johnson, Luther Burden. I'll take the points with Davante Adams.
Yeah,
you're talking about potentially Emeka Egbuka, Colston Loveland. I think it's for me, I'm going to lean towards the youth. I understand what you guys are saying. I think if I wanted to go get Davante Adams, the way I would do it is I would try to trade a younger player alongside a second round pick. I think a lot of people would consider. I think that this is, again, I don't think this is like you just said that the guy, it was a 5th round pick. And again, he's 32
in
years
redraft.
old.
Yeah, in redraft.
But he's 32 years old.
But I'm saying that's going to move up to the 2-3 turn, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would rather. I think Theo's right. I'd rather try to take a wide receiver coming off a down season.
Would you give up Chris Olave or Devontae Smith for Davante Adams? Either one of those guys.
Jalen
Waddle, yeah, same tier right there. Like 26-year-old receivers coming off down years, and Devontae Smith.
What about that, Theo? Would you do that?
Yeah, I think now you're talking a little bit like a potential pivot. I would still lean with the Devonta Smith one, but when you bring up Waddle, you bring up Olave, we're sort of hopeful that things are going to work out better for them this year. Whereas I'm getting the kind of a better bet for this season with Davante Adams, and we've seen it, guys. If Olave and Waddle don't restart the trajectory this year, and maybe, New Orleans ends up, let's say, Tyler Warren, and we think Tyler Warren's the number one target in New Orleans heading into next year. If Jalen Waddle has another year where it's low-end wide receiver 3 production, then you're really happy you made the move. So I think that's a better bet than the first-round pick for a 32-year-old. And I think it's one that you really won't come back to haunt you. Olave's got some outs, though, guys.
I wouldn't trade Olave. Don't trade Olave now.
Yeah, I think
Olave. Don't trade Olave now.
Yeah.
Do not trade Olave now. A guy like Zay Flowers has limited upside because of Lamar Jackson. There's a number of receivers you could package with a second or third round pick and go out and try to get Davante Adams from someone who was competing last year, went for it last year, and has realized, what if they had Davante Adams and Cooper Kupp? Now they're definitely in a rebuild situation, but they had this one asset that has been retaining its value year to year in Davante Adams. Now would be the time to flip it. And I would offer a receiver, a younger receiver with upside,
Ricky
with
Pearsall,
a second or third round pick.
Jaden Reed.
But he's damaged goods. Nobody wants Jaden Reed anymore, do they?
What? No, nobody wants Jaden Reed. I think Matt, you could go with
how about Pearsall? Pearsall is someone that people like.
Jerry Jeudy.
People love Pearsall right now. Jerry Judy's in fuego. Here's a trade: Keon Coleman in a second. If you're looking to start a rebuild, Keon Coleman in a second.
It's not going to get anyone excited. How about Jalen McMillan? You have to do something, a player that people like.
Jalen McMillan in a second.
Ooh, I like the Jalen McMillan. That's a good. Now you're talking. Now we're making trades on the Sonic Truth Dynasty podcast. Yes, Jalen McMillan. That's the one.
Right. It has to be a guy that at least people like, because Keon Coleman, no one wants Keon Coleman right now. You're not going to get a lot of credit for him in a trade. You'll get something.
And Baker Mayfield's unsustainable. Come on. 30 points a game. Come on.
And they re-signed Chris Godwin now, so McMillan is slightly less than, had the...
Look at Theo. Theo's 30 points a game. I don't know.
I mean, Tampa Bay was incredible last year offensively, and now they have McMillan, Godwin, Evans, Bucky Irving, the offensive line. Baker's in year 3. I mean, why can't Tampa Bay be just as good offensively this year with Josh Grissom?
Why not Tampa? Yeah, I was excited to see that after the trade, because you go to FastDraft and these trades are ripping, like the Flex 4 game. You just draft any 6 guys, and it's a best ball format. The top 4 enter your lineup every week. And so you're just drafting running backs, receivers, tight ends, no quarterbacks. And so in that particular format, if we look at the ADP, we just launched this today on the FastDraft.app website. You can see the ADPs. And there's Davante Adams. Look at the change, though. Look at the ADP change column, that middle column. Up 20 spots. So that essentially means he went at pick 40 in the last draft. That'll go up even higher.
I will be on the
even higher. And he's gonna overtake DK, all these guys. He's gonna rocket past them. DK'd be another one that you could try to flip for Davante Adams.
Go ahead, Theo.
I will be on the Fast Draft show on the 24th of March. I'm excited about that one. I got booked for that. I'm going with Jagger. That's going to be fun.
I have a fast draft question real quick. I thought I had your podcast on the background, and this intrigued me. I've never played IDP in my life, but you said you were doing a game with IDP. That to me sounds cool because I don't have to do anything other than draft.
Well, that's the thing. So here's the theory. And so we've been working with Josh Raymer from the IDP show. Okay. And a bunch of IDP guys across a lot of different properties, football guys, fantasy points, a lot of places to design this game. And so we designed an IDP game. It's all defense. You just draft 6 defenders and the top 4 into your lineup. So you're drafting Aiden Hutchinson. You're drafting.
Is it by position or just any 6 defenders I want?
Any 6 defenders. So in a particular draft, there's going to be about 4 defensive backs that get drafted. There's not that many Kyle Hamiltons out there that are going to get drafted, but there are a handful of. They're typically nickel corners or strong safeties that are going to put up enough points. But what we've done is in the scoring, we count things like tackles for loss. So the edge rushers are just as valuable, if not more valuable, than the middle linebackers, which is more in alignment with the NFL, right? So Aiden Hutchinson is more valuable in the NFL than middle linebacker X. So he is more valuable in the D-up game. So on Fast Draft, it's called D-up. And the beauty is, even if you're not a super IDP person, You just want to get a sweat on both sides of the ball. So what people are doing is they're drafting, say, 10 teams, and they have a little portfolio of defensive players. That would be like $100, right? But it wouldn't even be $100 because if you deposit, let's just for this show, if you use promo code TRUTH, right? Do promo code TRUTH, and we can, I'll show it up there. It says a $25 deposit match. For this show, we'll do a $50 deposit match. So this
for IDP.
For anything. If anyone signs up and deposits on FastDraft with promo code TRUTH, I will double their deposit up to $50. So let's say you wanted to do what you were talking about, which is like, I want to sweat both sides of the ball. When a defender makes a tackle, I want to have some skin in the game, just like when an offensive player does something good. I mean, that would have been a nice thing in the Super Bowl, right? There were more defensive plays made in the Super Bowl, even though the Eagles scored all those points. The Eagles' defense was more impressive than their offense. You agree, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was more impressive than the Eagles' defense in the playoffs? Nothing, right? Jalen Carter and company. So if you had Jalen Carter and you're watching the Red Zone channel, then you get a lot more out of it than just having guys on offense. And so if you deposit $50 and then you get matched another 50, that lets you do 10 D-up drafts. And even if you don't have time, you can submit a turbo mode order and say, I want 10 teams with these guys. And if you don't even pay that close of attention, the ADP is pretty efficient because there's been a bunch of these drafts going off with a lot of IDP guys involved in these drafts. And so you're like, hey, I'll move up a couple of my favorite guys. And now all of a sudden I have a nice portfolio of defensive players that I can root for 18 weeks while watching the Red Zone channel. And it cost me $50. So that's the case for the D-up game, because so many people said, the luminaries in the industry said, no, you can't do a defense game. No one's going to play that. There's not enough people that care about defense out there. And I was like, I don't care if there's 100 people that love to draft defenders and I have 100 passionate people playing on FastDraft. That's a win for us. I don't understand why you have to have millions of people that would play. That doesn't make sense. We're looking for passion first from our user base. So that, especially when you're getting started with something, you want to attract the people that are the most passionate, and that would be, Dynasty leaguers, that's IDP guys, that's best ball bros, and that's what we're all about. So if we have a game that all the most passionate fantasy people are playing, then it's hard to see that failing.
IDP people are head over heels for this game and ecstatic for it. So
I've never played
representation, Matt. Representation.
Yeah, I've never played it in my life because I just didn't want to have to sub the guys out, and it was never really involved in best ball.
It's not for me either. But the IDP
but
community
no, this isn't.
But
I'm saying this is intriguing because I could just pick them, right?
Yeah, there's all kinds of people now that are not IDP hardcore players that are dabbling in that game. Absolutely.
Not to harp on this too much, but off the top of your head, who are the top 3 or 5 IDP guys in your game?
Let's pull it up.
You mean the top, the
5 picks? Who would be the top 5 picks?
Well, fortunately, today we launched the tournament data section. It's right at the bottom of fastdraft.app, and I can show you that information right now.
There we go.
So the answer is Aiden Hutchinson, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Trey Hendrickson, Max Crosby, Will Anderson, Nick Bosa, Zaire Franklin, and Jared Verse. That is your top 10. Who would have thought they were tuning in to a Dynasty show and were treated to the top 10 defenders in fantasy football for 2025?
Give me the Jared Verse exposure, Matt.
I would.
Year 2. Give me Jared Verse.
I would take Verse 3. I would take him over Watt, right? Or right around where Myles Garrett is.
Well, congratulations, guys. You might be big winners on the D-Up contest. If you start with Verse and Fred Warner or Verse and Roquan Smith, who says no? Who doesn't love that team?
Yeah. And it's only 6 guys, right? The draft is 6 players, so that's easy. You could probably do that pretty quickly, too.
Well, you need to know basically the top 2 defenders on every team. if you're aware enough of the NFL to know the top 2 defenders in every team, then you can confidently draft in D up.
And even if you don't, just use the ADP. ADP is usually pretty good.
It is good. Yeah, it is good. So, yeah, we can for the starting ADP, we consulted with all these IDP guys, and then they've been playing a lot. And so it's pretty efficient.
All right.
Oh.
I was genuinely interested. I wasn't just doing a commercial for you. So.
Oh, it's on a commercial. So can we get back to Najee Harris? Because we talking about Najee Harris 20 minutes ago.
No, we
Because
passed Najee Harris.
I was so right about this. I was so right. And as it turns out, by the way,
so right.
I was right about Cooper Kupp all along. Remember, I faded Cooper Kupp, in the draft. And as it turned, and then remember Steve Smith came after me. Remember Steve Smith shot that video tearing down the Podfather for my take on Cooper Kupp. Turns out I was right all along, Steve. Turns out I was right all along. You let the clock run out, and then boom, I'd rather have Davante Adams than Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's dust, Steve Smith. What do you say about that? Yeah,
Steve Smith has
good luck with all your Cooper Kupp exposure, Steve Smith.
Steve Smith has other issues.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Do you see his dirty texting?
We don't need to talk about the Steve. We've already done the OnlyFans. Let's leave the Steve Smith one.
Steve Smith.
Should I tweet at
Steve
Steve Smith right now live on air?
He's got other problems. I'm telling you, he's involved.
I don't know what his
cheating
problems
scandal.
are, but I would love to tweet
Alan.
at him. Is it Steve
Alan.
Smith Senior 89? Is that him?
I don't know.
I think he's off social media after what happened.
What if I tweeted that? Can I pull this up? Want to pull up my Twitter here? Can we live? Has anyone ever done this before? Is this the first podcast to live tweet someone? I wanted to write, "Hey Steve Smith, how do you like Cooper Kupp now?" Should I tweet that at him?
Go for it.
So wait, let's ask the chat. Let's ask the chat. So I want to have plenty of cover here. Okay. Alan says go for it. Theo says go for it. And so now, I'll let the final chat weigh in. Someone says LOL. Does LOL count as go ahead? I don't know.
They're into it.
Alan is funny. We know we love Alan, Bo. You have a big fan in Bo Buckley, by the way, Alan.
Oh, it's my favorite chat guy.
Big fan. Big fan. Okay, here we go. This is what I was waiting for. Michael Aubin says, yes, do it, Podfather. All right, here we go. Posting. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, God, that really, every time you post on Twitter something that's not necessarily, obviously, just quality, informative content, if it's in any way edgy, it like a little like butter knife, like jabs you under the ribs. That's what
I
it
have a
feels
better
like.
segment. Let's go into your Twitter DMs. Let's look at your DMs live on the stream here. Let's see what's going on in those DMs.
Where do you guys have Najee Harris?
Where
do you have Najee Harris? Alan.
15th running back, something like that, right? I mean, if you
Lower
just want
than that for me.
You have him, so where 20? You have him somewhere. I mean, in redraft, I'm taking him in the 6th round, right? Especially if I need a running back.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a dead zone running back in redraft, and I think he's going to be a guy with a lot of utility for us in Dynasty. But I think if we go into it saying, Najee Harris, has these, RB1 type finish in the outcomes, I think you're going to be disappointed. But I do think he's a guy that we're going to be able to use in our RB2 spots, which is better than we were a week ago, where he was and also the Jalen Warren, Najee Harris combo dynasty managers, which there's so many of because Warren came out of nowhere. You're able to handcuff your running back. They have a potential blackjack split where they have 2 RB2s next year, or at least 2 flexes with those 2 guys. So definitely a win for Harris. The touchdown upside is very, very high in that offense.
Here's an either or, right? And I think I know where Podfather's going to land on this. What if you're on the clock and you're looking at like Chuba Hubbard or Najee?
Chuba.
Okay.
Chuba Hubbard. I was thinking, what about like Derrick Henry or
Derrick
Najee
Henry
Harris?
He's going way high.
Derrick Henry for sure.
Yeah. How about like David Montgomery? I think that's an interesting point to put him in the rankings. Or James Conner, something like that.
Zach Charbonnet?
He's a backup, right? Or at
But
least a
Charbonnet has
1B.
the juice. Yeah, I mean, I think that you're
Well,
right.
I think
you're
that's
right
that.
there.
I think now we're getting
you're right
in Theo's. Theo loves Charbonnet.
I like Charbonnet a lot. Charbonnet is a weak winner when he gets the opportunity.
Right, but that's it's if you're drafting in best ball though, I think that Charbonnet is probably more like a 9th or 10th round pick.
Najee's going to move up. Najee's going to move up in best ball.
Najee, you're going to be choosing like with running backs with the James Conner, David Montgomery, and anything can change with injury. But Najee's
I'd rather have
incredibly
Harris
durable
than those guys.
Well, that's right around where you're going to be making a decision. So,
here's an interesting one. This is where the rubber meets the road right here. You ready for this? Najee Harris or Tyrone Tracy?
Yeah,
because you're by acquiring Najee Harris, you are avoiding all the risk and all of the heartburn that's going to happen on draft day with Tyrone Tracy. I mean, Tyrone Tracy dynasty managers, it is going to be a long draft.
Would you trade Tyrone Tracy for Davante Adams? Is that a good one? We were trying to bring it back to what we were talking about before.
Yes.
Now
absolutely.
you're talking.
Now we're talking. Yeah, because I'd rather, like, for example, I love like RJ Harvey, like those are the So I would.
But that's cross positional.
I would draft those guys. But that's the zone. That's the Najee Harris zone. So that's what that pick would be. I'd be debating between an RJ Harvey and a Davante Adams.
Hey guys, also we were talking free agents on this podcast from Dynasty. You know who's back from the dead? That meme where the Undertaker wakes up. Are you guys into Elijah Mitchell, where he landed on Kansas City? Is this a good hey, you'll have like 2 weeks where you could start him, and 2 weeks is good enough when I need him in week 11?
It's certainly a potential spot, but again, this is one where he's going to have to get through the rest of the offseason. I don't think we know the hierarchy of the running back position in Kansas City till after the draft.
Right. But don't you? I mean, if he was dead, he was a cut in most leagues.
Yeah, this is definitely a lifeline. This is and the Kansas City Chiefs, every time they do this with a guy that we think is dead, they get utility out. Juju Smith-Schuster had multiple.
Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah,
Jerick McKinnon is the better example. Just because
Kareem Hunt was coming off the couch last year. And they got all those running back 1 weeks out of him. So,
and you're right though. But Jerick McKinnon was someone that people liked, but just never did it. And then he got to Kansas City and he had a few healthy weeks, and you're like, okay. And he was like a 15-point running back in fantasy, right? So I'm not saying Elijah Mitchell's a savior, but he's somebody that you want. Like if you're on the clock and there's somebody that like loves the 308 because some running back fell there or some receiver. Would you trade the 308 in your rookie draft for Elijah Mitchell, knowing you're probably going to only be able to use him like twice the whole year?
No, I'd rather have the 308 in any format this year.
Podfather, where are you on that? You were shaking your head no, so you're probably into the 308.
Look at the draft order. Look who's drafting at pick 63 and 66.
You think those are running back spots?
We've talked about RJ Harvey. We've talked about DJ Giddens, all these guys. And then, so it's going to be whoever they draft in day 2 and Pacheco. Elijah Mitchell is going to be at best, if he makes the team, RB3. But we got a long ways to go before he makes the team. They didn't pay him anything. Right. They paid him enough to come to camp. That's what they paid him.
And I'll
$3 million bucks.
I'll say this. We look at free agency as a whole. Washington Commanders go out and get Laramie Tunsil. That makes it less likely that they're going to select an offensive lineman in the first round. That's a potential fantasy football landing spot. Another team who added an offensive lineman, we saw Jalen Moore. Kansas City gets him to play left tackle. Is Kansas City at 31, history going to repeat themselves? If there's a TreVeyon Henderson or maybe a Omarion Hampton slips a few spots, could we see history repeat themselves? Kansas City has a lot of improvements to make on offense, but offensive line was the spot that they had to get right. They add a left tackle. Could they add a dynamic running back at the end of round 1? Then we're sort of talking a little bit. TreVeyon Henderson, Omarion Hampton. like that, you're getting pretty excited about that Kansas City landing spot. So
How about like a Cam Skattebo in round 3, the end of round 3?
you are constantly pushing the Cam Skattebo to Kansas City narrative. Every time I pod with you, you want to create this sexy scenario where I have to say I want to draft Cam Skattebo now.
Do you not like him? Is that
no?
You're not into him?
I don't hate Cam Skattebo, but he's like RB12 for me in this class. I'm not like over the top with him. There's people that have him a lot higher than I do.
You're actually making a good point here, because this is what I'm talking about. So a player that RB12 in a rookie class is not a good ranking, right? So, but that's my point. If you have a player like that who has pass catching chops, right? What do you have, like 40 plus this year in college, and then he lands in a good spot with higher than expected capital, doesn't that shift your mindset? Like, hey, I want this guy. So end of round 3, Cam Skattebo doesn't.
I love a lot of landing spots, but again, like, yeah, if Cam Skattebo threads the needle and lands really well, then I'll have to adjust my ranking. But Alan, every time I podcast with you, you want to go Cam Skattebo. You are over there. I want to get you an Arizona State throwback jersey of Skattebo.
It's this year's Bucky Irving, right? He's the player that does not. We've
identified this year's Bucky Irving on this program. It's Brashard Smith. Day 3 guy who got a Brashard Smith's our Bucky Irving.
And they could both end up in Kansas City. Kansas City knows they have to move on from Kareem Hunt, who is dust. They have to move on from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They're moving on from all these guys, and they're bringing in bodies like Elijah Mitchell. But who's to say they're not going to draft 2 running backs? Given they don't have too many
came on Dynasty Life. Thor came on Dynasty Life. It was a great episode. Highly recommend Thor. He's been on Mind and Mansion a bunch of times as well. But he actually brought that up, Matt, where we saw this in 2017, where Green Bay double tapped Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams because of the strength of the overall strength. We also saw it last year with the Jets double tapping and going Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen. You could see multiple teams this year double tapping the position going into next season with their running back 2 and their running back 3 potentially being rookies, because again, there's like 18 guys in this class that are interesting, and then a few other guys that are, hey, those guys are going to get drafted and they're still pretty interesting. It's like 2 running back classes together. It's insane this year. So yeah, you could see a number of teams doing that, Matt.
What is it about Skattebo that you guys don't like? I'm just looking at the college production. Again, I don't watch a lot of college football until the very end. So 1,700 yards, 24 touchdowns, 45 receptions. I mean, that seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, Skattebo, to his credit, didn't run the 40, but he did have impressive numbers in like the vertical leap and the broad jump. We're gonna have Big 12 pro days coming up, Alan. I don't think.
But what is it about him that you don't like?
I think that a lot of the like receiving numbers was a product of Arizona State's system, and not that Cam Skattebo has this incredible juice as like this Jahmyr Gibbs like receiver.
Oh no, yeah. Well, and I think that's why we're saying end of round 3.
The argument that he's David Montgomery and James Conner, the guy weighed in at 219 at the combine and didn't run the 40. So to me, if you're coming in light, Matt, if everybody all year says I'm 225, 230, and I show up at 219 and I don't run, to me, I don't like that. He wasn't at the Senior Bowl, so I think that the draft capital is probably going to be there, Alan. But I think he's way more likely to be a round 4 guy, maybe slip to the end there of round 4.
Well, if he's round 4, why can't he be round? If he's round 4, why can't he be the end of round 3? It's just like if you're the Chiefs, it's the same thing we're talking about. If you get one pick in the end of the 3rd round,
I don't dislike Skattebo, but there's other running backs we like more.
Damian Martinez is going to go ahead of him. I don't agree with it, but you have to understand how NFL teams think. They like Damian Martinez. There's some NFL team that's going to be thinking that Damian Martinez and Brashard Smith in one draft is like a masterstroke, thunder and lightning.
And I hope this one doesn't come back to haunt me, but isn't there some parallels with Tyler Algier and Cam Skattebo? And Algier also, when we were doing the draft process, we liked Tyler Algier. I can remember podcasting with Cody Carpentier and us talking about Tyler Algier, a big-time producer. And again, the numbers for Skattebo better. This year he was unbelievable for Arizona State. But again, could that be the outcome for Skattebo, where he falls to day 3, ends up being a handcuff, has some utility anytime he gets in there? But again, there's so many guys. And if Skattebo was in last year's draft class, it's a little bit different story. But this year, there's just so many guys and so many overly athletic guys who have a really good profile. So I don't know. For me, I don't see myself having a ton of him in Dynasty. If it hurts me, it hurts me. And again, I'll take him if he becomes a value in rookie drafts. I'm not taking Skattebo, but I'm not going to reach to take him because I love what he did at Arizona State.
In the player profiler mock that we did the other day, I took him at like 208. You think that's too high?
Yeah. Shout out to the fantasy plumber. Thinks I'm a tight end enthusiast only. That's a good comment there, fantasy plumber. No, I would not be all over Cam Skattebo if he's tight end. Come on, man.
Yes, if he was that's a great comment.
Listen, just because I love the tight end class here, come on.
Yeah, that's a great comment. You were on the comment before I was. Remember, I was hyping myself.
I saw it. It just Plumber's. I'll give Plumber a shout out because Plumber's in a lot of these chats and he's also commenting on YouTube and stuff. A big shout out to people that keep coming back to Player Profiler shows. But Plumber, that was a good one. You got me on that one. I do like the tight ends in this class. Yeah,
and everybody who's in the chat, like the show, please. Please like the show. If you like the show, if you want to see more of me tweeting live at Steve Smith and risking a bodily harm, a punch in the face at my doorstep, well then like the show. Subscribe to the channel.
Alan said he'd come back on Sonic Truth if this show got 300 likes on YouTube. He'll be back on 300.
The problem though is that if you like it while it's live, those likes don't carry over to the like after post live is what I've.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah, or no, maybe it's the comments. The comments don't carry over.
What
the likes
are you talking about? Don't listen to him. Nobody listen to him.
Everybody go. If everybody.
Wrong.
We have 700 people. 700 people watching this show.
No, that's
incorrect.
Incorrect. If you like the show, it's liked. But if you have a live comment, do me this favor. Okay, after you sign up for FastDraft with code Truth, copy your comment and put it in the actual comments.
No, make a new comment. Make a new comment.
Make a new one.
Or no, if you loved your comment.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. If you loved your live comment, put it in the actual comments of the actual show, or put a new comment in. That's like even Theo. Think about it. Like think about something really clever that's going to withstand the test of time. And put that in the comments. And hopefully it's about how great this show is and how there's nothing else like it. There's no shows like this. Who's live tweeting at Steve Smith? Okay, this is what I do. 10 years. My face hasn't cracked and I haven't changed a bit. It's the same Podfather you've been enjoying for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, as long as you've been tuning in. You're welcome. If you enjoy that, like it. Or if you're listening to the podcast, hit the share button on your podcatcher and share it with a friend. Be like, hey, this podcast is good. Pick the friend that you're okay with them knowing the best advice in fantasy football. Maybe because people are competitive, they don't want to share like where they get their best information. Pick the guy that you're least afraid of. You can't be afraid of everyone in your league. Pick the person you're least afraid of. Share the podcast with them. That's what you need to be doing. That's it. So, we have talked about almost every move. We should, before we close this out, couple rapid-fire observations. Aaron Jones, aging like a fine wine. I mean, he is a huge winner. We had no idea what was going to happen with him. Signed the 1-year deal. They loved what they saw, and now he's turning 30, and they're like, actually, let's do 2 years now. So that is a great sign for Aaron Jones. I think he's a buy in Dynasty. He's essentially another former Packer. He is the Davante Adams of running backs based on his age and how he's taking care of himself and how, that he still has all that explosiveness left. Impressive
Aaron Jones
stuff.
or Najee. Aaron Jones or Najee, Podfather, in your Dynasty. You're on the clock and you're picking a running back.
I'm still going Najee Harris.
Okay, I like that.
I'm saying it's just the Chargers, man. No matter where he landed, he was going to be safe. But going to the Chargers with that offensive line, if there's one running back that would test that offensive line, because that offensive line with Joe Alt is just primed to be the best in the league. Now, it takes longer for offensive lines to coalesce as a run blocking unit. Run blocking is a little technically from an individual level, the skill set is more straightforward to run block than it is to pass block. Pass blocking requires more finesse. But as a unit, it takes longer for the unit as a whole to develop efficiency as a run blocking unit. But if they have the talent, it's just a matter of time before this becomes the best run blocking as well as pass blocking unit in the league. And with Justin Herbert under center, I mean, you have to love this. I mean, he could go out and put up 5 yards a carry because the running back is so interdependent with that offensive line. That's the reason. Had he gone to another team, then I probably would say Aaron Jones.
Fair enough.
Christian Kirk to the Texans is big. I mean, that is the perfect skill match where you have a proper slot receiver, and Christian Kirk has always been better in the slot, with a proper X outside receiver in Nico Collins. So for the Texans, I thought that was brilliant that they would bring in a guy like that to complement Nico Collins.
If he's healthy.
It's also a repeat of what they did last year where they move a 7th-round pick for a skill position player that's going to really help them. They did it with Mixon last year, and Kirk in that Stephon Diggs role, it's very solid. Like last year, Diggs was in this incredibly low ADOT role where the ADOT was super low, but the volume was there. The target volume was there. Diggs averaged 15 points per game. Kirk can come in and average 13 points per game and be a flex for you in many weeks in fantasy. And it's been sort of the secondary target with CJ Stroud continues to put up points. We saw it with Tank Dell. We saw it with Diggs. We saw it with Noah Brown. Nico Collins is the alpha, but there's always room for a secondary target in Houston. So, yeah, I like Kirk there a lot.
Theo, but would you trade Tank Dell, who might not even play this year because the injury was so late? Would you trade him away for Christian Kirk in Dynasty?
If I needed wide receiver points this year, absolutely. And I think the Tank Dell comeback, little guys who can't stay on the field, is a tough bet. I love Tank Dell. I love the talent. Love what we saw as a rookie, but he's not going to play this year. And again, it's not like Tank Dell was some first-round pick where we're like, this guy's going to miss a year, but he's going to come back and he's going to eat. Tank Dell, I would flip for any second I could get in any single QB. And
it's a third at this point.
Yeah, it's a third. And in FFPC right now, if you offer people a Tank Dell in a serious league, they'll say, I'm going to wait for you to cut him at the end of the month. If I want Tank Dell, I'll pick him up when he's a cut.
Right.
So,
well, because it's a short, you're only allowed to keep, 16 guys. So, Podfather, you were high on Christian Kirk. You like that spot. I know you're doing rapid fire here, but you see him as more like a Jacoby Myers type for fantasy football?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a value regardless. Okay. He's young enough. And, he doesn't have any kind of brand that anybody likes. He's very similar to Jacoby Myers in that way, but
that's it.
I believe that CJ Stroud is a quality NFL quarterback. I think that, we saw Tom Brady most famously, Justin Herbert most recently, just fluctuate wildly with the pass attempts based on the philosophy of the team and the health of the defense. And I believe the Texans are going to be in more games against the Jaguars. There's just going to be more competitive games the Texans will be in. They're going to have to throw more next year. I think this is going to be a bounce-back year for C.J. Stroud and a year to go nuclear for Nico Collins and big value on Christian Kirk.
Yep. Did you guys, by the way, notice?
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, Data Analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.